Hi, Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Muhammad bin Muhammad Azhar.
And I'm Seri Kalisa binti Abdul Kadir Jelani.
I am Alicia Diana.
I am Nadira binti Muhammad Zaki.
I'm Ayani Fatini binti Muhammad Faizul,
Bachelor of Corporate Administration student.
We are going to present on issue in international relation between China and Malaysia in terms of foreign policy.
Generally, international relation is a field of study that focuses on developing and adjusting the national interest to other states. Quincy Wright defined international relation as relation between groups of significant importance in the world's life at any period of history. Meanwhile, Professor Hans Morgenthau defines it as a struggle for power among nations. Besides, Norman Padelford and George Lincourt define international relations as changing the pattern of power relationships through the interactions of state politics. On the other hand, foreign policy is a nation's strategy to conduct diplomatic relations regarding interactions and relationships with other countries. Joseph Frankel, a well-known author who currently works as a professor of politics at the University of Southampton, stated that foreign policy is all about decisions and actions. The country's policies, economy, other states' behavior, domestic considerations, and specific geopolitical design influence the issue. In addition, foreign policy needs proper planning, controlling, leading, and organizing by the government to solve any problems raised wisely. Therefore, it precisely involves relations between one state and others. Upon completing this assignment, we realized that establishing these diplomatic missions is essential in complementing the relations between nations. Thus, we chose Malaysia and China as countries to discover more about issues, implications, and solutions of foreign policy.
With records dating back about 3,500 years, China is the world's oldest continuous major civilization. Successive dynasties established a bureaucratic system, giving the agrarian Chinese an advantage over neighboring nomadic and hill cultures. Chinese civilization was further strengthened by the development of a common written language and a state ideology based on Confucianism. These developments have bridged the gap between the numerous local language and dialects spoken across the country. The nomadic monkeys overthrew the native Ming dynasty in 1644, establishing the Qing dynasty with Beijing as its capital. The People's Republic of China was established in 1949 when the Communist Party defeated the nationalist Kuomintang, which fled to Taiwan, resulting in the establishment of two competing Chinese states, which is the first one is the People's Republic of China on the mainland and the Republic of China on Taiwan. Malaysia is a Southeast Asian country that was formerly known as British Malaya and then as the Federation of Malaya. Malaysia is divided into two geographical regions by the South China Sea. First, Peninsular Malaysia, which is known as West Malaysia, and second, Malaysian Borneo or East Malaysia. East Malaysia is bordered by Indonesia and the Sultanate of Brunei, and Malaysia has maritime borders with the Philippines and Vietnam. Malaysia is a home to approximately 33 million people in 2021, and Kuala Lumpur is the largest city and the country's capital. Malay, English, Tamil and Chinese are the languages spoken in Malaysia, and Malaysia's official religion is Islam. Approximately 60% of the population is Muslim, while another 20% is Buddhist. Malaysia is a multi-ethnic and multi-religious Southeast Asian country that is one of the wealthiest and most developed in the region, trading on Singapore and oil-rich Brunei in terms of gross national product. On August 31st, 1957, the Federation of Malaya was officially recognized as a country in its own right. On September 16, 1963, Singapore Sabah, formerly known as British North Borneo, and Sarawak became members of the Federation, which led to the expansion of the country. From that point forward, the country would be known as Malaysia. On August 9, 1965, Singapore officially severed its ties with the Federation. Despite this, China and Malaysia maintain a healthy relationship at the national level. These two countries have never failed to assist one another in the times of need. The Chinese government maintains an embassy in Kuala Lumpur in addition to Consulate General Office in Georgetown, Kota Kinabalu and Kuching respectively. The capital city of Beijing is home to Malaysia's embassy, while the country also has consular representation in Kunming, Guangzhou, Shanghai, Xi'an and Hong Kong. The historical presence of Chinese people in Malaysia, which has the world's second biggest Chinese diaspora at the present time, is another factor that links the two nations together. The China-Malaysia Friendship Garden was established in 2014 in collaboration with the Malaysia-China Friendship Association to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the official establishment of diplomatic relations between Malaysia and China. This occasion marked the beginning of diplomatic relations between the two countries. The park was created across 0.6 acres of land and cost around 1.5 million to build. It was given the name Ziyuan, which comes from two Chinese words, Zi, which means the acquaintance of friends, and Yuan, which indicates an antecedent site of a gathering site.
The current issues that have been happening regarding the South China Sea, where China has started to claim that the South China Sea is theirs. This is all started with China's broad claims to sovereignty over the sea, and the sea is estimated at 11 billion barrels of untapped oil and 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas that have been antagonized competing claimants Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan and also Vietnam. Countries began claiming islands and various zones in the South China Sea, such as the Spratly Islands, which have been abundant natural resources and fishing areas as early as the 1970s. These recent years, it can be seen when satellite imagery has recently revealed China's increased efforts to reclaim land in the South China Sea by physically increasing the size of islands or creating new islands entirely. China has built ports, military installations, and airstrips in addition to peeling sand onto existing reefs, particularly in the Paracel and Spratly Islands, where it has 20 and 7 outputs respectively. Woody Islands has been militarized by China, which has deployed fighter jets, cruise missiles, and radar systems. Malaysia is one of the Asian countries whose territorially claims in the South China Sea overlap with China's. Brunei, the Philippines, and Vietnam are the other countries that also had authorities toward the South China Sea. While Indonesia does not consider itself a party to the South China Sea dispute, Beijing claims historic rights to areas that overlap Indonesia's exclusive economic zone. This has been written in the news by Global Conflict Tracker in Territorial Disputes in the South China Sea. Based on the article written by Quick, in Malaysia's rationale and response to South China Sea tensions, it said that Malaysia has maintained its low profile in the South China Sea issues. This is because Malaysia has always preferred to resolve conflicts through back-channel diplomacy. The next issue is the Belt and Road Initiative. The Belt and Road Initiative is a bold plan to build 2 new trade routes connecting China to the rest of the world. It is an effort to expand China's interdependent market, increase China's economic and political power, and create the necessary conditions for China to build a high-tech economy. Since the BRI project involved most of the countries in the world, Malaysia is also one of the countries that is involved. Malaysian projects contributed significantly to the perception that the BRI is synonymous with corruption. Former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak signed an infrastructure agreement with China for the East Coast Rail Link, or called as ECRL, which is part of a larger belt and road vision of a united Southeast Asian railway network. In other words, the Chinese primarily invested in major infrastructure projects such as deep sea ports and railway lines that were regarded as part of the Belt and Road Initiative before Malaysia's historic change of power in May 2018. This initiative reflects China's desire to abandon decades of foreign policy cautions and play a larger role in a global and regional developments. Malaysia, on the other hand, surprised the Chinese government and the rest of the world with its first change of power in 60 years in May 2018. The transition from a corrupt and authoritarian regime to a democratically legitimated government necessitated a rethinking of BRI investment. The new Malaysian government insists on more technology and knowledge transfer from Beijing, as well as an end to massive infrastructure projects and the exploitation of Chinese excess industrial capacity. China's foreign policymakers are now making a significant effort to revise their use of soft power in Malaysia. After the change of power in May 2018, Malaysia's receptivity, on the other hand, was reset during the Mahathir Mohamad, leader of the Pakatan Harapan administration, which lasted from May 2018 to February 2020. While pledging Malaysia's continued support for the BRI, Mahathir suspended several China-backed projects while allowing other ventures to continue. After renegotiating the cost and terms of the controversial East Coast Rail Link (ECRL) with China for 9 months, Mahathir agreed in April 2019 to restart the ECRL while reviving another China-backed project, Bandar Malaysia, a joint venture that will house the terminus of the proposed Kuala Lumpur-Singapore High-Speed Rail (HSR).
For implication in securities, it is related to the South China Sea issue. Increasing pressure driven by the South China Sea dispute is the biggest challenge in Malaysia and China relations. Malaysia cannot do anything against all China's action, which are their claims of the South China Sea belongs to them. Malaysia prefers to resolve bilateral disputes with China without going public and using quiet diplomacy. President Parameswaran, a regional security specialist, referred to the quiet diplomacy as playing it safe in a 2016 article. 4 of the primary claimants, which is Vietnam, Malaysia, Philippines and Brunei, are members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN. Next, East Malaysia, which is Sabah and Sarawak on the island of Borneo, and Peninsula Malaysia's eastern border seas are included in the Malaysia's claims in the South China Sea. Due in part of the influential ethnic Chinese population in this nation, which is in 2020, Malaysia's population was classified as 22.6% Chinese with 69.6% Bumiputra or ethnic Malay. As well as China's outside impact on the Malaysia economy, Kuala Lumpur has stayed away from publicly criticizing China. The government of Malaysia has made it straightforward that maintaining good diplomatic ties with any nation does not involve putting its national security at risk. Malaysia continues to be strong in holding their honor and sovereignty. Malaysia also is a vital member of ASEAN, which has been attempting to formulate a code of conduct (COC) with China in order to manage disagreement and enhance collaborations. With the objective of promoting peace and stability in the area, this COC aims to develop the Non-Binding Declaration of Conduct (DOC) made between China and ASEAN in 2002. As for implication in economics, it is related to the Belt and Road Initiative (BRI). While under the Pakatan Harapan government, they attempted to improve credit terms with China, which is the East Coast Rail Link (ECRL), and was briefly put on hold. Meanwhile, the Sabah pipeline was cancelled after it was discovered that 88% of the project value had been paid to Chinese contractors, even though only 13% of the work had been finished. Malaysia's society did not simply accept Malaysia's involvement in the BRI. It was cautioned against accepting Chinese investment without conducting a comprehensive investigation based on the example of Chinese investment in Africa, where Chinese labour followed Chinese capital with little local participations. There were worries that Malaysia might not profit from the investment if there was no technology transfer or labour participations. This project wouldn't contribute much value to the domestic economy because Malaysia would only serve as a convenient destination for Chinese investment, not an active participant. Concern was also expressed over Malaysia's potential fall into a debt trap induced by China, similar to Sri Lanka's. One example of credit being received with an insufficient income streams to repay the debts was the Hambantota Port Development Project in Sri Lanka. Another example, the failed Bandar Malaysia project is one of the risks involved in relying on funding support from China, putting the spotlight on other Chinese investment in Malaysia.
Based on the issue that has stated above, China has started to claim that the South China Sea is theirs. There are solutions that involve several ASEAN countries. Firstly, the solution is the ASEAN Declaration on the South China Sea. As for the solution, the ASEAN countries agreed to make activities that touch more on a peaceful solution, such as hold a forum to discuss strategic policies. This declaration succeeded in agreeing on the Code of Conduct formula. The COC formula substance direct multilateral solutions such as strengthening cooperation, navigation and communication around shipping lanes that must be maintained for the benefit of the entire world, protecting marine environmental ecosystem and combating international terrorism in the South China Sea area. Since the beginning, China has always been unsupportive of multilateral solutions. However, China has agreed to negotiate multilaterally but based on the 1982 International Sea Law, which was more binding. Secondly, the solution is the Declaration Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea. For this solution, China has signed the declaration between ASEAN and China in order to negotiate together to find a peaceful solution. At first, China was initially hesitant to engage in multilateral negotiation, but eventually they agreed to it. The agreement consists of ASEAN as a regional organization with China, not a claimant state. ASEAN and China signed this declaration in Vietnam in 2002 to avoid military conflict, emphasize peaceful settlement, fulfill peaceful passage rights, and mutual restraint over the South China Sea territorial conflict. The requirements proposed by China are guidelines for developing a code of conduct based on the 1982 International Law of the Sea. Then, it is the issue of economy, which is Belt and Road Initiative. Based on the issue, Tun Dr. Mahathir decided to discontinue the project under Belt and Road Initiative, which is the East Coast Rail Link (ECRL), because the cost of the project is too high. Other than that, Tun Dr. Mahathir wanted to avoid having a lot of debt with China. Tun Mahathir stated that it will be continued if the cost of the project is reduced. After renegotiating the cost and terms of the controversial East Coast Rail Link (ECRL) with China for 9 months, Mahathir agreed in April 2019 to restart the ECRL while reviving another China-backed project, which is Bandar Malaysia. It is a joint venture that will house the terminus of the proposed Kuala Lumpur-Singapore High-Speed Rail (HSR). This is because the Chinese government is aware that Malaysia is facing financial problems and the cost agreed in the past is too high. Malaysia also has proven that other companies can construct this railway at a lower cost, so that is why the Chinese government has agreed.
In general, foreign policy is a policy that needs to be implemented in a committed manner for the long term so that each country can play a proactive role in guaranteeing stability. In the context of the Malaysia-China foreign policy, various factors have influenced the international relation between the two countries. The main issue raised are regarding safety and the country's economy, a crucial aspect that needs to be underlined. Thus, some implications affected the countries that can always be overcome through good diplomatic ties. Several solutions are proposed to solve the issues and impact to meet the country's objectives. Therefore, both countries need to appreciate and respect each other's position and be consistent to maintain harmony.
That's all from us. Thank you for listening.
Hopefully, everyone can implement the benefits of our presentation in our daily lives.
If there are any questions, you can ask us in the live session.
Thank you and Assalamualaikum.